All right. Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. It is Big 12 Thursday, and at least that gives us something on Thursday regarding basketball to care about because there are no games worth a darn tonight. But we're going to dig into the Big 12 bubble, which is a little more robust than I thought it would be. Graham, where are you at overall on the Big 12? I assume we each have seven. UCF is still on this bubble list, but it feels like they're pretty close to a lock. They would be the seventh team. Do you think they'll get an eighth, possibly a ninth team into the dance?
If you had asked me this question a week ago, which I think you probably did, I would say seven is the answer. Now
Yeah.
I'm leaning a little bit towards eight. And I think Oklahoma State's in the conversation, but TCU rising quickly, it's more the Horned Frogs that I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's those are the two teams we'll mostly fixate on here, but there are a total of six teams on the spreadsheet. There it is. And in case you weren't with us previously in this What's It Going to Take week, I'll quickly run through it. These are the teams that Torvik's Tourneycast say have at least a 98% chance of making the tournament. And I think any bracketologist worth his salt or her salt would agree that Arizona, Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, Texas Tech, BYU are locks. UCF is only listed at 73.2%, which feels pretty low to me. This number here, the wins above bubble, is the official NCAA, what they have as the WOB right now. These numbers come from Torvik. They're slightly different, but pretty much the same. It's a good estimate of what to expect. If they win, they'll get, say UCF wins this game at BYU, they would gain 0.74 wins above bubble. If they lose it, as we have it projected here with nothing in that spot, they would lose 0.26. So it's an N minus one situation, which we more or less confirmed last night by looking at a bunch of different games happening across the country. And then this number down here is what their pre-conference tournament wins above bubble. We should get an acronym for that, PCTWAB or something. That's what it would be if they win the number of games that we have outlined here. So with that, let's dive in on UCF, who we both have. What you have them like 30? I think I have them 31. They should be in, but assuming they lose to BYU and we'll even assume a loss at West Virginia, they would still have a WOB of 3.31. Like they could lose out and still be just at a minus 1.69. So as long as they win two of their remaining seven games, they'll be positive. I mean, 73.2% is way too low on UCF, right? This is more like a 96%.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think UCF has been in my don't blow it category for a long, long time, which means resume is fine. And there's still a little bit of risk, but it's really to the point where you truly have to blow it, just absolutely implode down the stretch. Any other result, and UCF is dancing.
Now, what's interesting here is that UCF is extremely important to all these other teams because they host West Virginia. There's West Virginia. They host TCU. There's TCU. They host Baylor. There's Baylor, and they host Oklahoma State. So if UCF takes care of business at home, it's going to be a lot harder for the Big 12 to get an eighth or even a ninth team in. But I think we're both pretty confident in the Horned Frogs. So confident that I'm just going to hide that. Oh wow, that messed up. I didn't realize it would do that. Huh, whatever. All right. And then this other section on Cincinnati. How in God's name they're listed at 7.3%? I don't know. Even if they win out, they would have a 0.58 wins above bubble. And I crunched the numbers. They have a 1 in 200 chance of winning out. So how does that equate to 7 point? There's no way Cincinnati's getting in.
I don't know how some of these numbers work because I just don't believe any of them. As we talked about previously with Miami of Ohio, what were they like a 3% chance that they could get in at large? It's like,
Yep.
I'm not buying that at all. Like, definitely not buying that number. So, frankly, the AAI may come for our bracketology at some point, but it's not there quite yet.
I love that. All right. let's just touch on Baylor and West Virginia real quick, what it would take for either of them, because we both have them relatively far out. Um, they both have a somewhat considerable negative wins above bubble. Um, Baylor, even if they go 4-3, let's say they beat Louisville this weekend, they get those wins over Kansas State, Arizona State, and Utah that they should get, they would still have a negative WOB. So I think Baylor has a lot of work cut out for them. And then you see here with West Virginia, even if they go 5-2, now granted their schedule's a little more forgiving than Baylor's is, but if they go 5-2, they would have a just barely positive WOB. Last year, it was a .79 WOB for West Virginia, and they did not get in. But again, there were some extenuating circumstances, both Tucker DeVries' injury, and if you're into conspiracy theories like I am, Darren DeVries planning on leaving for Indiana. Maybe they threw him a bone there. I don't know. But do you think Baylor or West Virginia? I feel like those percentages are more fair. 6.2%, 9.5. It's like even a roll of the dice would be a little bit too generous.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams have a chance. I just don't think it's much of a chance. Like, they're going to have to be really, really good. I will say, to West Virginia's credit, schedule's not so bad. It's
Yeah.
possible to just play a little bit better than you're expected to and end up posting a terrific record. To Baylor's credit, they actually have looked pretty decent recently. They just haven't been picking up the wins. So they played BYU close. They played Iowa State close. It's not like they've been getting blown out in these games recently. So I wouldn't say Baylor's completely dead either. I just think the odds that either of them actually pulls it off is pretty darn low.
So Baylor's resume metrics average right now is 64. They are 5-11 against quads 1 and 2, so they just need wins to adjust that. West Virginia 4-9 against quads 1 and 2. They do at least have that really good win at home over Kansas, but they are also right around 60th in resume average. It's not looking good for either of them. These two teams, though, as we mentioned in the intro, very, very close. I mean, 0.18 above bubble, 0.36. They are perfectly bubble teams. And as you see here with Oklahoma State, if they go 3-4, they are the quintessential bubble team that would be exactly 0 wins above bubble. So if they were to steal one, and even I mean at Cincinnati, it's crazy that that's a .67 for WOB. But if they were to win that game, now they're up to a full win above bubble. Maybe that gets them in. What do you think? Oklahoma State is 4-3, enough that they would feel like how confident would you be in Oklahoma State heading into the Big 12 tournament if they finish 4-3?
Not overly confident.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't think they'd be headed into the Big 12 tournament. I do, but they better win that first Big 12 tournament game. If they don't, I think they'd get West Virginia. Same thing that happened in the Mountaineers last year. I think Oklahoma State has a major road problem. They haven't gone and proved they can win big games on the road. And even here, even if we're giving them credit for Colorado and Cincinnati, it's not really going to do much for the committee as
No.
far as like it might count as a nice WOB number, but they're not going to visually see that as a big win. So I think Oklahoma State they've done a little bit too much damage at home. Even neutral courts, they haven't done damage at neutral courts. I think Oklahoma State needs to prove they can win on the road. At UCF is the game I have circled on my calendar for the Cowboys. Really important they win that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here, and that's what I have. Something must be wrong on Torvik that they have Cincinnati at 41. Did they think that Cincinnati beat Kansas by like 25 last night instead of Kansas State? I don't know what's going on here. There's no way a win at Cincinnati is more valuable than UCF, but I'm looking at the numbers, and that's what it says.
I
Something's
mean,
messed up there.
Cincinnati has a better efficiency than UCF, so it makes total
I
sense to me.
guess. Yeah, that's
I mean, the
insane.
thing that, again, this is where the committee and the human element comes into play.
Yeah.
You and I know Kansas State gave up on the season a while ago.
Yeah.
They really could get boat raced by 40 points from here on out. Like, that's entirely within the realm of possibility. Metrics don't know that. They're like, yeah, the Kansas State nearly beat Nebraska. That's who we're talking about. Yeah, they really don't understand. they've given up on the season. I think the committee would know that and treat that a little bit differently.
I know as a Kansas fan, it pains you to point out that Kansas State doesn't give a shit about this season anymore. So I do think, at least in comparing Oklahoma State and TCU right now, which I mean, they are, I think I have them as my second and third team out or something like that. I do think TCU is in better shape, even though they have the worst losses, which kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier in the week about VCU, that they'd be better off winning at St. Louis and losing at Dayton than the other way around, because you want those, like a questionable loss and a marquee win is better than just two games that went the way they were supposed to go. So I think TCU, even with that god awful, quad four home loss to New Orleans, they also have a quad three loss. Was that to Kansas State? Did they lose that game? I don't remember which other one they lost. But they have four quad one wins, whereas Oklahoma State has one. So I think that's why TCU is so much stronger percentage wise in the tourniquet. I don't agree that they're 10 times as likely to get in as Oklahoma State, but I do think they're a little more likely. In part as well because of their closing stretch. They have 7 games left. The only one that's particularly daunting is at Texas Tech. I don't think it's crazy to say they probably should go 5-2, and that would get them to a point or a 1.34 WOB. I think if they go 5-2, they'd be in very good shape to dance heading into the Big 12 tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they would be. And what TCU has, which is really a golden ticket at this point, is they already have enough quality wins to make the field. Now it's just about win accumulation. I look at
Yep.
Oklahoma State, I think they need more quality wins.
Yep.
TCU, they've got it. So, really a nice thing to have if you're TCU. And I have a feeling both Oklahoma State and TCU are going to be desperate to win this weekend,
Mm,
even though it's in Stillwater. Give me the team I think's better. I think TCU is going to go in Stillwater and change the fortunes for both teams.
yeah. Looking through their TCU schedule, that was the quad three was a home loss to Notre Dame. They also have a pretty bad quad two loss at Utah. So, it's similar to what Stanford's resume was before Stanford started just accumulating losses left and right, where they've got several things they did very good. Beat Florida on a neutral, beat Wisconsin on a neutral. Those are both looking better every freaking day. Got that home win over Iowa State, swept Baylor. I mean, the home win over Baylor isn't worth a whole lot, but that's a very solid road win. So I think they've got a lot to the good in their credit. Now before we wrap up, this has nothing to do with the Big 12, but want to go back to Miami, Ohio, and just wins above bubble in general. And we were texting about this previously. So we were looking at this after we ended the call yesterday, and Miami, Ohio's wins above bubble at 24-0 is 1.85. So they're averaging less than 0.07 or less than 0.08 per win for the season. Now, some of those were D2 wins that didn't factor in, but whatever. 24-0, and they're averaging 0.077. A home win over Rutgers, which is 150th on Torvik, is 0.09. So if you played Rutgers at home 21 consecutive times and won all those games, you'd have the same wins above bubble as Miami, Ohio. Maryland, which is 120th on Torvik. Home win over them is worth 0.13 WOB. If you played them 23 times and went 22-1, you would have the same WOB as Miami, Ohio. I don't know what point I'm trying to make. I don't know if I should be impressed that Miami, Ohio has that good of a WOB. Like, you should beat Rutgers and Maryland at home every time you play them. But I also feel like even if Duke played Maryland at home 23 times, they'd lose one of them. Like, it is crazy just the fact that they keep on winning. And I think that that's going to get them in more so than whatever their wins above bubble ends up being, as long as they don't completely crash down the stretch. Did you have any thoughts you want to share on wins above bubble in general or as it pertains to Miami, Ohio?
I think Duke's played a lot of teams better than Maryland, and they only have 2 losses on the season. So no, I don't. I don't think Duke's losing a single game at home to Maryland. I think they could play Maryland literally 75 times at home and win all 75. I think that's the difference we're talking about. So I kind of come out to the opposite conclusion. Is like, yeah, there's a reason the committee's always hated when a team loses a quad four game, because you shouldn't lose a quad four game and make the tournament. Like, that shouldn't be happening. Obviously, we saw what happened with TCU in New Orleans to start the year, but I do think there's a little something to be said for opening night in college
Yeah.
basketball. Maybe TCU will get a bit of a break there. But I think what Miami has done is very impressive. If they go into the MAC tournament unbeaten, I think they are going to the NCAA tournament, regardless of whether they win the MAC tournament or not. But if they lose a regular season game and they lose in the MAC tournament, I think that's probably not going to work for Miami. Because, again, to your point about Maryland, yeah, maybe you can lose one of those games to Maryland at home, but you shouldn't lose two at home to Maryland.
Yeah. What do you think this is going to do for non-conference scheduling in the future? Like, this is kind of the opposite of the Iowa State gaming the net by beating quad four teams by 50 over and over again. This is just, you don't even have to schedule anybody. And as long as you don't lose at all, you're going to end up with, you know, obviously a wins above bubble of good enough to belong in. Now you have to run the table, but like if a team like Memphis, right, they're not going to play anybody in the AAC several times a year. I mean, there'll be a couple of quad two road games in there, but for the most part, there's nothing on their schedule. But they usually schedule aggressively. And I think that's the idea being they're preparing for the tournament and getting ready to face teams that they might face in March. But could teams like that just go the opposite way and be like, screw this, we're just going to play Mississippi Valley State and we're going to take our, you know, point 0.7 plus wob and head into conference play feeling good? I I don't know. I feel like Miami, Ohio is going to break something about the way we approach bracketology moving forward.
We'll see how the committee treats them.
Really.
I Here's my personal thought. It doesn't matter. Miami might be like, what, they could be looking at like 16th or 17th in the country in WAB by the time we get to the NCAA tournament if they go unbeaten. Committee's not giving them a 4 or 5 seed, and that's where
No,
I
no, no.
think we have to separate. Excuse me. We have to separate who is this team from what does their WAB look like, and I think there's art and science to the whole thing. So I just don't think it's really going to break the system, because I think the committee will come back with all the same things they've always done, which is, well, we looked at the team and they didn't have quality wins. They didn't schedule tough out of conference. Those things haven't gone away. Those are still selection committee criteria. They're still going to look at them. So I think Miami, if they go unbeaten, they're going to get a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. If they lose a game, man, you could be looking at an 11 or a 12 if they end up getting the MAC championship auto bid, but lose a game in the meantime. I think 9 seed is my personal opinion on where they're going to max out seed wise. I think it's going to be a recognition by the committee that you went undefeated and we respect your WAB. On the other hand, we actually don't think you're that great and you can't get up higher without quality wins. Nobody gets up higher without quality wins. No exceptions, even for unbeatens.
So we'll say you said that it might get up to like 15th and wins above bubble, but I don't even think that's possible just because they don't have the opportunities there. Looking back at last year, Mississippi State was 30th in wins above bubble at the end of the year, and they had a 3.05. And if Miami, Ohio wins out through the regular season, I believe that would put them at like 2.72 or something. And then if they beat Ohio in the conference championship, maybe that brings them up to right around there. But that I don't think they're getting above 25. So they could still end up getting seeded kind of similar to where their wins above bubble is. I agree with you. They would probably be an 8 or a 9 seed. I don't think there's any chance they're getting above an 8, even though I've had them like right at that 9. That's like the max I could possibly see them getting to, but I don't think there's any chance they can, you know, pick up enough wins above bubble to get up into that mix for even if you were just looking at that metric that you would consider them a 5 seed. But that's about it. We're just kind of going off the cuff here on wins above bubble. We'll be back tomorrow with SEC chat with we're doing it, Southwest Region Bracketology guy. That's tomorrow, right? So we'll
Matt
have him
Dixon.
on. What's that? Matt
Matt
Dixon? Yeah.
Dixon. Looking forward to having him on.
Yeah. So hopefully he's ready to get into the weeds on these goofy numbers like we are. But until next time, take care, take the night off, and enjoy the hoops tomorrow. Take care.